Listening each week to the Sunflower podcast by Mike has been like being on a fairground roller coaster. The ups and downs and feelings, the heights and the depths of my feelings were just so bad, so much. I've swung to and fro and been like a double-minded man, and still am. I think there are different levels of feelings. I understand about what Susannah has said regarding atonement and restitution, and how there are two things in Judaism that are not possible to be forgiven: murder and destroying somebody's reputation. But I know that Yeshua is made of no reputation, and I understand no one can forgive somebody for murdering or taking a life if it is not their life. I look at it like having a priest absolve you. No, he can't. The only one who can both atone and forgive is Yeshua. And I pray that before the SS officer died, that he actually called out to God. I also once asked a Jewish lady to forgive me for my thoughts and my dislike of the Jewish race. And she turned to me and she said, "I forgive you on behalf of myself and of my nation." So as a believer, I would have to forgive. But when I say forgive, it would be an ongoing forgiveness, because I know that I'd be tempted to not forgive. So I would have to keep on and on and on. So I'm still no further on in my understanding of what Susannah is saying, or how Simon should be feeling. I wasn't there in the horrors that Simon faced, so I don't have to make that decision. But I pray that he comes to shalom in his mind.
Hello everyone, this is Margaret here. Mike, I want to thank you for the podcasts. Found them really interesting, and I've listened to every one, very thought-provoking. I didn't send a podcast regarding Simon's actions, but I have been thinking about it. And if I can just mention this, I like Susannah Heshel. I think he acted correctly, and particularly with regard to visiting the SS man's mother, and also withholding the truth from her about what her son had done. Susannah Heshel's thoughts are really interesting. I have read her father's book on Sabbath, and I can recommend it. It's really helpful in understanding Jewish thought. That's by the way, but I'm not surprised she's come up with these very thought-provoking words. So what she said is, according to Jewish thought, murder and destroying reputation cannot be forgiven. And this, to me, the Jewish thinking behind this makes a lot of sense, actually, because we tend to have a very sort of inward sense of a concept of forgiveness. And the Jewish approach is, like many of their understandings of these concepts, involves specific action. And we know Hebrew is a language of action. So I understand what she's saying. And I think obviously we've all been turned to think of what Yeshua teaches us about forgiving others, or we cannot receive God's forgiveness. So we have that example and teaching of Yeshua, who takes it perhaps deeper than Jewish people maybe understand. I might be wrong there. But what Yeshua teaches seems to be in the context of an individual who has wronged us. And I don't see in the scriptures the idea of forgiving a people group. Many of us have read about Corrie ten Boom and forgiving the Nazi guard who was at one of her meetings. That was very powerful. I think we've all heard of close family members who forgive the murderer of their loved one publicly. We've seen it sometimes on our TVs. And I feel that's a really powerful witness to everybody listening. I think ultimately it is about freeing that person from being in this prison of unforgiveness, which is what Yeshua teaches us. Susannah Heshel referred to it as the victims or survivors, the victims' families or survivors living without bitterness. And that is really important. So it's always a good thing when we hear, a very moving thing, when we hear of families forgiving the murderer of a loved one. But ultimately, we know that only God can forgive and cleanse sin through the atoning blood of Yeshua. The whole book, the whole readings, and this, what we've been thinking about, raises other issues about repentance and forgiveness, which I can't go into now because I think that's enough here. But yeah, thank you again, Mike. It's been really, really helpful. God bless.